So Fox News has done a complete 180. Previously Tucker was very aggressively making the case that Vladimir Putin is a victim in everything that's going on with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He even went above and beyond the standard leftist position, which is about NATO expansion and how that's a threat to Russia. And, he got to the point where he saw, even after Putin's speech, where half of the speech was about Putin's imperial ambition, basically saying Ukraine is a fake state and we kind of own it and should have it back. Even after that, Tucker was still sort of going with the line of, there's nothing else to this other than Putin being defensive. And that's misleading. That's not true. You got to look at all the evidence. You got to look at all the facts and make a determination about what really goes into this conflict. And ever since then, now there's been I have whiplash from the flip-flopping that Fox is doing. So now they've gone so hard in the other direction that they're being hawkish and dangerous. So Tucker himself now came out and is starting to make the opposite case because it's too obvious that we're looking at aggression here. And there's other Fox segments that are terrifying. So here's Judith Miller, and I'll tell you more about Judith Miller in a second. She went on Fox News and she said this.
So far, the result of what he's done has been the exact opposite of what he's wanted to happen. So he's got to be furious. I know earlier today, Admiral Stavridis said perhaps there was a, quote, Julius Caesar solution. That is, maybe someone in his immediate entourage would kill him. But we've had... Biden is now the fifth American president who has stared into Putin's eyes and has come out with various impressions. Putin was, according to Joe Biden, someone who had no soul. I think we ought to stop looking at his eyes and just permanently close them.
I don't think that's the right thing to say at this very delicate moment when we are on higher nuclear alert. Putin is on higher nuclear alert, and he threatened the West in no uncertain terms and said, if anybody gets involved, you're going to have consequences the likes of which you've never experienced in your history. Now is the time to be as on point and focused and reasonable as possible. Now, look, the part where she's talking about, hey, maybe somebody inside Putin's inner circle has had enough and they'll off him. That's a reasonable conversation to have. That might happen. We know the billionaires, the oligarchs behind the scenes are sort of pissed off about what's going on. So there's there's a splinter within. So that is not something that I'm upset about. The part that is crazy is the last part. We should stop looking into his eyes and permanently close his eyes. He has nuclear weapons. He has nuclear weapons. This isn't like... You can't just send in SEAL Team 6 and take care. If there's an oopsie, well, then it's a wrap on humanity. And Judith Miller, I told you I would give you more on Judith Miller. She was a so-called journalist for the New York Times, rank propagandist. She was critical in building the case for the Iraq War. She was the one who acted as a stenographer to the intelligence agencies and the deep state who were wrong at best, lying at worst, talking about, Saddam's a threat, he has weapons of mass destruction, the implication is he's going to use them on us. She took that message and brought it to an otherwise skeptical, liberal-leaning New York Times audience. And so she helped build the consensus to get us into an illegal and offensive war. Now, understand something. What Putin is doing here is aggression, it's imperialism. I think all the facts sort of dictate it's not just about NATO expansion. But now is not the time to be talking about assassinations and killings. Because, God forbid, man, the more he feels under threat from the West, the more he's going to react erratically. And he's already been acting erratically. We don't want further erratic action. What I support, as I've told you guys 1,000 times, is sanction the oligarchs to the high heavens, sanction Putin himself to the high heavens. I would do whatever sanctions I can. Oh, one of the best ones is seizing all the offshore bank accounts of the oligarchs and of Putin. That's one of the best things you could do. Because it directly targets them, and there's really no negative side effects for the Russian population. So I do every sanction I can that's not hurting the Russian population. That's an intelligent response. That plus negotiation, diplomacy, arming Ukraine, as long as it's not the Azov battalion who are neo-Nazis. So that's how you handle this. This idea that you casually talk about assassinating him, it's such dangerous talk, and they're oblivious to it. Like, do you not understand the level of danger that we're currently under? Do you not understand how serious a situation this is? How delicate a geopolitical crisis this is? And she doesn't, because she's an idiot. Or she does know and she doesn't care, because she's got a death wish or something. I don't know. But either way, this talk is crazy, man. And we've had other people go on Fox News, and Adam Kinzinger said this as well, talking about, well, obviously what we need to do is a no-fly zone over Ukraine enforced by the U.S. So you want U.S. weapons to shoot down Russian planes over Ukraine, direct military conflict between two nuclear-armed powers. How do you think that's going to end? That literally is an act of World War III. And they say it casually, as if it's like, a limited thing that there's no response. Guys, I don't know how I can stress this more than I am, but nothing happens in a vacuum. Every action you take will have a reaction. So that's why it's important you deter without escalating. Just casually floating assassination as if it's easy, or as if it's, there aren't colossal downsides to fucking it up, or if there aren't colossal downsides to succeeding. Like, I don't know how else to get through to people that you need to take this seriously. This isn't like, you're not talking about, overthrowing some tin pot dictator who is otherwise powerless. You're not talking about that right now. And even in that situation, it's still not the conversation to have, because, the idea is when we commit crimes, it's okay. When we do illegal actions, it's okay. International law doesn't apply to us because we're the policemen and the serious people. And it's like, no, our history shows that is not the case. You don't want us playing that role. We're not holier than thou. We don't abide by human rights and democracy and freedom and justice, etc. But there it is. I mean, the last kind of talk we should be having at a moment like this. Seriously. We should permanently close his eyes. Again, she didn't say, early on she talked about maybe somebody from within his own inner circle might off him. That's a fair conversation to have. Maybe it happened. I don't know. Then when she says, we should permanently close his eyes. What I fear is the entire political establishment, Republican politicians, Democratic politicians, and the entire corporate media over and over and over and over and over again telling Biden, you're being too weak, you're being too soft. I mean, they're unleashing almost every sanction under the sun, man. They really are. And some of the sanctions go too far and will hurt Russian civilians. What I fear is pushing him and pushing him and pushing him and putting him under colossal pressure to the point where maybe he does try something really stupid that we can't reverse and we can't turn back from. That leads to a worst case scenario. Look, I know some people out there are skeptical of the World War III talk, right? Like, I get it. But you have a false sense of security, man. You really do. This end of history idea, this end of history analysis, like, we're done with, stuff like world wars. That was crazy. We all learned that lesson. All the evidence is pointing to the conclusion that it absolutely is possible to happen again, and it'll be worse this time because it's the nuclear age. So don't have that false sense of security. I'm reminded of, I know it's a weird comparison to make, but I'm reminded of people's false sense of security that Hillary would 100% win, and there's no doubt about it. I'm reminded of that right now. And then Trump won, everybody's like, shit, I didn't even know that was a possibility. So maybe be a little more humble, Maybe be a little more humble in the face of this conflict and this crisis. And don't just like rah-rah and do jingoism and get ultra-nationalistic and have an overreaction. That's not to say what Putin's doing isn't bad and aggressive and imperialistic. It is that. But this sort of talk, man, look, it's neoconservative, hawkish, imperialism, bloodthirsty garbage that is not going to lead to any sort of a solution, not going to lead to de-escalation, and it puts everybody in danger. And by the way, let me end this segment with an equally important fact here. Hopefully I could find it here in my DMs. Give me 1 second. It is not like you're not seeing the same sort of thing on Russian TV. So on Russian state TV, quote, our submarines alone can launch more than 500 nuclear warheads, which guarantees the destruction of the U.S. and NATO for good measure. The principle is, why do we need the world if Russia won't be in it? So the ultranationalists on Russian TV are all in. And they're like, look, we'll take this whole bitch down, man. That's what we'll do. We'll destroy the whole goddamn thing. Everybody needs to chill, and everybody needs to reel it in, and everybody needs to be careful and intelligent. Because if the hawks get control of the narrative on both sides and there's no pushback, I shudder at the consequences of that, man. I really do. You almost can't imagine how bad it could get. So I have nothing but condemnation and scorn for the ultra hawks on Russian TV cheering on an imperialist invasion and threatening nuclear warheads, and the massive hawks in the media here in the U.S. who casually float the idea of assassinating Putin in the middle of this crisis when he's already acting erratically, and they're further fueling more erratic action. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.